Hi everyone, welcome back to our WARNO 2v2 tournament. Today we have our first round 3 match. War game greater than SD with Pixy and Razzmann versus Äiäkärpäset, which is Horse and Mahti. We have Pixy and Razzmann playing as NATO versus Horse and Mahti playing as the Soviets. In this case, Pixy playing at the top of the map, the top as armor, and Razzmann at the bottom right hand side as the 8th Infantry. Over here we have Mahti, which we'll have to check is playing the 79th Tank Division, and up at the top we have Horse, who is playing the 39th Infantry, and we will just double check that and it is correct. Let's get this show on the road. So basically we have infantry versus tanks at the bottom, a matchup we've seen a few times. And at the top, we have infantry versus, well, technically tanks, but we'll say infantry for the sake of it. Cluster coming out there for Pixy. Where's it going to hit? We haven't seen this a lot in this tournament, but it can be very effective. Surprisingly got a lot of vehicles at the front there. 3 of them, in fact. It didn't look like the bombs were going to hit those vehicles. Shockingly good bombing run in the grand scheme of things. I honestly thought it was going to miss those ones at the front. Forces wise, plenty of infantry for Razzmann. Obviously he is the infantry division, but he is bringing up a couple of tanks, an M1 Abrams and an M60. Over at the other side, Mahti bringing in infantry. Getting there a little bit later may allow Razzmann to push into Foxtrot if Razzmann is feeling like he's going that way. Pixy sending quite a few units towards the centre as well as Alpha. Mixture for Horse up at the top there. Lots going on in Delta. Plenty of choppers there. I see some Spetsnaz being dropped off as well. Razzmann is going for the push. He is going for that early push into Foxtrot. He is going to be met by some choppers by the looks of it. Though I do notice that Razzmann has some stingers ready to go. Plenty of forces coming in for Pixy as well from the bottom there. Heading into the middle. Meeting that rocket. Very effective, those rocket choppers, but in the grand scheme of things, I think they're just too focused on one particular unit and the units aren't clustered together enough. Pixy has made it into the buildings, a very important part of capping early game in Delta before they're destroyed. I also note here, Pixy has got all of this area. So, as I've said multiple times on this map, one of the most important places to cap is here. Because it stops the other team bringing in reinforcements down this road. And Pixy knows this, he has gone straight for it. He has military police in there, which are great at taking out vehicles. Anything that goes along that road is going to be at risk. And in the middle, looks like Pixy and Razzmann do have the overwhelming force at the moment at least. Down here we can see that Mahti is quite distracted, having to deal with Razzmann's push. Razzmann obviously getting in these buildings very early on, again blocking any possibility of reinforcement. At the moment, realistically, the only way that these guys can get in is around this road, through Juliet. I know that they are getting points at the moment, Horse and Mahti, because they have more command vehicles in. However, we can see that command vehicles are on the way in for Razzmann and Pixy as well. Down here, Razzmann is pushing. He is overwhelming Mahti. And this is a very difficult point to dislodge people from if they have enough forces there. My concern is that Mahti honestly probably doesn't have enough here to stop Razzmann's push. Most importantly for Razzmann and Pixy is holding this section in the middle. They've obviously got all these units here which will be blocking some reinforcements. There we go, we could see them firing, and there it is. Vehicle coming in with some anti-air Iglas and immediately killed by those military police. You can also see Pixy using vehicles for scouting there. A few reinforcements coming in for Horse, but that is not going to be anywhere near enough to dislodge Razzmann and Pixy's forces. Down here we do see good use of these rocket gunships again. They will certainly stall Razzmann's assault, but he's done enough damage. He has access to this area, and he has plenty of units there. And right now, that is probably the most important thing. I can see that there is possibly a plan for Mahti to try and get round the back behind the front line. However, obviously that is risky. There is plenty of scouts dotted around for Razzmann. Experienced wargame player, knows that scouting recon is so important. Up here again, we're seeing those military police surviving, still doing quite a bit of damage, just stopping those vehicle reinforcements coming in. Have done what they needed to do, however, they have been killed now. Significant amount of forces pushing all the way to this side of Delta from Pixy. Razzmann forming more of a defensive line in those buildings, however, more reinforcements coming in and a CV for that point as well. And another 2 CVs heading towards Charlie. Whether one of them gets... No, there is another CV up there from Razzmann heading to Alpha. So they will potentially put 2 CVs in this point. No movement on these troops here. I do see that BRDM2 even, sorry, is up there having a little sneaky look at that base perhaps, but isn't going to be doing much from there. Forces moving up from Horse there. There isn't a lot in Alpha, let's be honest. There is not much there defending. Most of Pixie's forces went here and obviously to the centre at the start, though I don't doubt that Pixie could reinforce that very quickly if necessary. Significant hold for Razzmann and Pixie on the centre point right now. Just having a look back at what's happening down here in Foxtrot, you can see that Razzmann is not letting up. He is keeping the pressure on, forcing Mahti to reconsider where he's sending units and keep reinforcing here. We can see that Horse is bringing in bombers now, a couple of HE bombers flying in there. Very effective when used in force. Multiple coming in at once at one target is also beneficial. Not seeing any clusters coming in there though. Unfortunately, there just weren't enough units at the front here for Mahti, and he is going to get dislodged from the front of the point. Razzmann pushing in quite aggressively now. HE bombers coming in for soloing Pixie as well. He did have that cluster early game. I haven't seen it pop out again as yet, though I may have missed it. Building up forces at this side from Horse and Mahti in a hope to retake the centre point, or at least get it neutralized if nothing else. That Phantom just flying around empty of ammo for some reason and has been destroyed. I think that was a mistake rather than something deliberate from Pixie. Razzmann pushing forward with his scout vehicles, getting much closer to this point, has now got a command vehicle in there as well, or command infantry more specifically, and the plan there will obviously be to keep that decapped so that their points climb at a higher rate. Horse still has these units slowly coming in. I do notice that something looked like it was being placed down there by Pixie or Razzmann. Another jet being destroyed there. I believe that was some kind of cluster bomber, and there's a HE bomber there as well. Being utilized, may have been a HE as well, but both of them dead. Plenty of anti-air forces here. Plenty of high-ranked anti-air forces, might I add, for Razzmann and Pixie in the centre. A big build-up of forces here. Mahti and Horse know they need to get that point back, or at least dislodge Razzmann and Pixie from it, especially with all this going on down here. That is obviously a significant issue for Mahti right now. Still has some units down here which will be good for defending, but unfortunately not a significant amount. More forces pushing forward here to defend that commander, but obviously Razzmann does now have a bit of a foothold in that point. Up at the top here, loads of reinforcements, loads of BMP Motorstrelki coming in and Metis Motorstrelki for Horse. Not a lot happening at the back of the map here, nothing really around the back in terms of scouts. The same over at this side. Most of the fighting taking place in these 2 points. Horse is still trying to get around the back there. I do notice that scout. That scout is going to see those Iglas, though is probably going to die to those Iglas as well. I don't know if it's seen the sappery, but obviously Pixie will now be aware that there are units in that area. Razzmann doing an exceptionally good job at continuing to push slowly into this point, taking his time about it. No need to rush here, just needs to gradually push forward, making sure he kills as he goes. Up in the middle of the map, where all of the big fights are going on right now, mech rifles there for Pixy. He's keeping the pressure on that road as and when he can, obviously just making these guys think twice about what they're doing with their units. However, a significant force now coming in and moving into the point. They really want to dislodge Razzmann and Pixy from this point. Clusters coming in now, and another cluster, hitting all of those units that are on their way in. The F-16C cluster did not drop its payload, and that's something that we've seen a few times. I believe there is possibly a bug with those units. Loads of forces coming in here as well. SU-24M cluster coming in for these guys, aiming at those tanks, taking out some of the anti-air potentially, mainly just doing a bit of damage to the tanks, but Pixy, very aware, watching what's happening, had reversed those tanks out of the way. This is why there is a significant advantage to double striking with those, so you're hitting with two at once. Obviously, significant risk against these guys, as they do have a lot of anti-air. Attack beacons going up there. I believe that's probably trying... I'm not sure if that's trying to mark for artillery. I'm not entirely sure. There isn't actually any artillery on the map at the moment for either side, I don't believe. No. Clusters coming in again for these guys, going over a lot of anti-air and have been destroyed. Not doing any damage, unfortunately, to that commander, as it was infantry. Even more units coming in for Razzmann now. He is determined to push through that point. Equally at the same time, these guys, Mahti and Horse, have done a really stellar job at building up a significant amount of forces and going in en masse. They didn't go in bits and pieces. They waited till they built up a significant force and then went in. As a result, Pixy and Razzmann were not prepared for that amount of units, plus the incoming bombers. Even the bombers did die, they will have scared off and done some damage to plenty of Razzmann and Pixy's units. So well done to them. I do notice up here plenty of reinforcements coming in for Pixy for that point. That Sapri RPO may never unfortunately get to that commander, but good effort trying to get those round the back. Significant battle going on in the middle now, and down here at the bottom, this continues to be an unfortunate, difficult task for Mahti to rid the point of Razzmann. Razzmann with increasing numbers of units, taking out the dribs and drabs, unfortunately, that Mahti is bringing in. Obviously, significant amount of Horse and Mahti's forces have gone towards the centre, so Mahti has only been able to bring in small amounts. Realistically, there is no simple answer to that. The only thing I can think is maybe if he had pulled everything to the very far end of the point, and then hopefully managed to build up enough forces to push back against Razzmann while Razzmann was busy elsewhere, that may have worked. But unfortunately, Razzmann is not going to let up and continuing to bring in more forces. I will say Mahti is doing a good job at fighting back, is managing to kill a chunk of Razzmann's units that are coming in, making use of BMPs as well in close range. But artillery now raining in from Razzmann. That is an M109A2, not the new fancy one. So won't be doing quite as much damage, but will at least be doing some. Razzmann's units under fire at the back here, but he has got them a lot further forward. If you remember at the start of the game, those Sapri RPO were down here. They're now all the way back here. So it just shows how Razzmann is pushing all around this point. In the centre, loads of clusters coming in there. I'm waiting to see them fire. They really just aren't firing. They must be bugged. They're just taking a lot of fire themselves. Double cluster bomber there coming in for Mahti. Very effective when used doubly like that. Forces wise up here, scouts being brought in for Pixy. I'm wondering where they're going. Possibly down here. Though he probably needs something else in that town to protect that commander. Plenty more reinforcements coming in at this side for Pixy as well. obviously wanting to come in and take them from the rear, so to speak. Pixy and Razzmann's forces doing a good job at holding at this side, slowly whittling down what Mahti and Horse brought in, though there are plenty more infantry at this side working their way around. Dislodging this area is probably the most important thing, and realistically the only thing I can think is using a lot of bombers or a lot of artillery. Down here, Razzmann still with that very firm hold. Reconsidered his position now, has less units around at this side, but has fortified this location here, therefore protecting his commander. Plan here is likely that he wants to now push into the centre point rather than be focusing on Foxtrot anymore, as obviously this is costing both teams a lot of units. Here in the centre, of course, Mahti and Horse doing a fantastic job, have managed to get their own commander in now. It will be interesting to see what happens there. Oh, look at this from Mahti. Mahti's got that BRDM2 all the way around into the town and is hunting that CV. A request for fire support from Mahti as he has found it, hoping for some artillery support perhaps, or a plane. But that should be able to kill it. It is only a mutt. It is taking a lot of damage. I mean, that is the long play. That is the long play. Mahti has been holding that at the back of the map since the start of the game, 15 minutes from the start, 16 minutes almost, and has managed to kill that CV. Now that has neutralized the points, so no one is gaining any at the moment. Ideally, I think Mahti would like to retake this point. But this has turned into quite a back and forth game. I mean, certainly Pixy and Razzmann are way ahead in the points, but realistically, you know, Horse and Mahti have done a fantastic job at playing equally aggressively, careful planning, building up their forces before sending them in, not going in dribs and drabs where possible. Really, really effective at pushing back in there. Unfortunately, they are now getting pushed out by Pixy and Razzmann, but to be able to say that they took that point and managed to get their own commander in using, you know, a sensible amount of force, I'm really impressed that they managed to get in there against Pixy and Razzmann. I think they should be commended for that, because, you know, Razzmann and Pixy, top tier players. See a few attack beacons going down there. Oh, that's got us some motorstrelki right around the back of the forces there. Won't be doing a hell of a lot on their own, unfortunately. Would have been quite good, probably taking out a few vehicles coming in and out. Motorstrelki managing to secure those buildings there. Although, unfortunately, we'll be coming up against a lot of infantry from Pixy, who is pushing out from that point at that side. Down here, a little bit of movement from Razzmann. He is sort of lining up all of his transport vehicles, various spots around that point. I'm not convinced that he would want to make a move on the point. However, it's possible. I think he's just making more of a defensive line. More artillery pieces out now for Razzmann. 3, in fact. Still the 109s. Being used to bombard units in the centre. There are plenty of artillery pieces now out for Horse and Mahti, equally hitting the middle quite hard, taking out Razzmann's Heimatsuchen. Loads of mech rifles coming in there for these guys. Not Pixy, not... Oh, they have been deployed. I was wondering about that. Pixy has now deployed them. Very effective counter push from Pixy and Razzmann in the centre there. Razzmann getting slightly pushed back by a series of tanks here. BMP tank T80, or the T80 will take quite a lot of damage from these mech rifles though. Has Horse realised, or is he paying attention elsewhere? I fear he may not have realised, because that is going to dive very quickly to all of those missiles. Razzmann and Pixy pushing those guys out the middle now. They have lost their commander that was in there. Points now ticking up again for Pixy and Razzmann. Still haven't recapped Bravo. That would be +5 if they could get a command vehicle in there, or command infantry. Those RPOs never really went anywhere, unfortunately. I don't know if they're afraid to move, or if they're out of ammo, or what. I do notice there are more reinforcements coming in. A motor strelky and a horse is also bringing in an Igla there. But there is an attack chopper there waiting for them. I think that was a little bit of scouting being done there by horse as well to see what they had at the front. There's a jet being shot down. We missed what that was. Lots of fire coming in on these units here. I assume that, yeah, I think these guys are being used for scouting. I'm assuming that's what happened to these ones here. Unless that's them all the way down there, I'm honestly not sure. But certainly, Razzmann was aware that there was something back there. Centre point firmly back in the hands of Pixy and Razzmann now. Artillery being used to good effect to take out anti-air. Not as effective as it is in Wargame, though, the artillery currently. As it is very good at that job in Wargame Red Dragon. RPO just holding their position there. All of these transport vehicles with guns pushing into this point now. Not really doing a huge amount. I assume they're sort of being used for scouting. I think what Razzmann would love is if he could find the commander and then artillery it from range, just to add to their points income. F-16C clusters at the back there. Not sure what the plan is with those. Notice they aren't really firing when they come in. Again, I'm assuming they're bugged. I'm sure someone has mentioned that. I need to double check. Artillery being used to good effect along with a lot of units which have filled the middle of this point now. I don't think realistically in the few minutes that are left of the game these guys are going to manage to beat out Pixy and Razzmann for that centre point, and Razzmann has a fairly firm hold of this area now. Up here at the top, good effort from Horse. He has managed to push in with those units, but unfortunately never really moved those Sapri RPOs to kill that commander. And at the back now we can see that there is a commander in that point again. The unit that was there has been destroyed and they are at +5. So this is likely going to be a win. I think there's no other way to put it for Razzmann and Pixy. Very, very well played to Horse and Mahti. Their efforts to push back into the middle point there, very, very effective. Really impressed they managed to do that and at least neutralise it against two of the best players in this game right now. But I mean, you can just see by the cluster of units on the map who has the overwhelming force here. And I expect the scores will reflect that. And that is game. To Razzmann and Pixy, well done to them, well done to their opponents, very well played, really good effort. In terms of kills, Pixy getting the significant amount there, 6,000, Razzmann coming in with about 3,000, matching up with the other two players in that game. Obviously, kills versus losses, heavily in Pixy and Razzmann's favour, but very well played to Horse and Mahti. They did really well in that round. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Please stay tuned for the next third round match, and then we will be moving on to the third place or bronze match, and then we will move on to the final games. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all soon.